Hello, hello. It's Leah Simone. How are you guys? I hope you're doing well. I, of course, had another thought, so I decided I wanted to share. And today we're talking about internal reflection. So I realized that I talk a lot about internal reflection, and then I had the epiphany that there might be somebody out there who doesn't know what that means really, or what that process entails, or how to even get started. So I just wanted to share what works for me, and maybe it'll help someone. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking to myself. But anyways, for me, the internal reflection is a process of withdrawing my energy from heavy hitting external influences to allow myself to sit in my own energy and bring about more self-awareness and truth about myself, so that I can ultimately live authentically and in alignment with that as I go about my day and when I decide to reconnect with the external. So in saying that, I just want to throw it out there that process can be super uncomfortable because it requires you to be absolutely honest with yourself, right? There are a lot of things that I feel like we attach ourselves to, like on an identity level. And that can oftentimes come from the interactions that we have with the outside world. Maybe the compliments that people give us, or even the criticism that people give us, the things that we see in social media, just our general engagement with other energies that are not our own. And if we're not aware of our own energy, we can easily be influenced. So the process of internal reflection is, again, to reconnect with my own energy and then bring about some awareness of my own truth. The way that I get started with that is to... Honestly, the thing that works really well for me is journaling. And I know that sounds so cliche. And a lot of people that I've talked to are like, I don't know. I just don't even know what to say, how to start, what to do. I dig it. I was that person as well. And it shocked me actually how effortless things flowed out when I just began. And some of you guys might be like, okay, but how? How do you begin? Here's an example. Let's say I was in a situation where I had an interaction with a person and that really irritated me. Maybe I was offended, whatever, but either way I am irritated, right? And I'm holding on to that. So I'm like, I'm going to journal about it. And I might have the intention or the idea of sitting down and journaling about this person and talking about, what they did to me and their choices, their actions, whatever. And then as I'm writing, I find that I'm actually really reflecting on myself. This is actually how I felt. This is what caused this reaction. This was the trigger that caused this reaction. And then I started exploring that. So the important thing for me whenever I'm journaling is to be honest with myself, but also to ask myself questions and explore myself from a place of curiosity and not judgment. So, things like, why do I feel that way? What does that mean about how I perceive the world, or what my perspective is, my view is? Is that truthful? Is that really this person's intention? Or am I being defensive? You know what I'm saying? What is causing this defense? What event or interaction have I had or had repeatedly to set me up so that this is my default reaction anytime I encounter this type of situation? And then I answer those questions, and I have to answer them honestly in order to be able to make progress and get some clarity, right? And so I'm writing, and oftentimes it's from an emotional space. So after I'm done writing in the journal, I will allow myself the space to come back to my center emotionally, to get out of this place of anger, for example, or to sadness, whatever it is, but just to kind of restabilize. That could be an hour, it could be a day, it could be a couple of days, a week, however long. And then after I do that, when I feel like I'm back at a place of calm and centeredness, I can go back and reflect on that journal entry, right? And so a good exercise that might work for you that, I have done myself is to go back and read the journal entry, but read it from the perspective of a friend saying these things to you, right? If a friend came to you and expressed to you what you are saying in the way that you are saying it, how would you receive it? What type of advice would you give to them? What would be your opinion of the situation, of how they reacted, how the person reacted? Do you support it? Do you not support it? That type of thing. And then compare that to what you actually wrote. If it's different, then I feel like there is ultimately a difference in your authentic truth and maybe how you are expressing that. So let me give you an example, right? So for me personally, I have always prided myself on my communication. I feel like I have a pretty extensive vocabulary, a pretty broad knowledge base. I feel like I know a lot of things about a lot of things, maybe not in depth in everything, but at least surface level on a lot of things. I think that I articulate very well. And in general, I think that I'm a good communicator. I have received that feedback from other people, like, wow, you communicate so clearly, blah, 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 whatever. So I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm a good communicator, right? Also, another thing about myself, I would say that I am an emotionally strong, emotionally stable person. Anytime someone comes to me with whatever their situation is, it is so easy and so clear for me to see the situation and provide some sort of feedback in a way that they are able to receive it and productively use that. You know what I mean? And it's not in a way that I'm forcing my agenda. So I always felt like, I think people are a little more sensitive than I am, because I can be a little direct sometimes, and I can be a little unintentionally abrasive. I can be received abrasive, I would say. Right? Also, I find myself to be a compassionate, caring, nurturing, empathetic person. Right? So I'm like, I do everything out of love. Like, I don't operate from a space of hate. It's too exhausting energetically, to be honest with you. And so these are things that I know about myself. I'm confident. I can write about it, whatever. That's the thing, though. When you are not being truthful with yourself, even if you don't know that you're being truthful, the universe will let you know. Okay? How can you know that they'll let you know? Because these very things that you believe about yourself, you're going to be challenged. And it oftentimes, in my case, shows up in the form of a trigger, right? So what happened to me? These are these areas that I feel very confident about. I'm a good communicator. I think I'm emotionally balanced, and I'm a loving, caring, nurturing person. I met a person. When I tell you this person shook up my entire shit, my entire world, okay? I realized that I fucking suck at communicating my feelings. And I thought that I was living from a space of unconditional love, but I realized that it wasn't. It was a place of love with expectation. What do I mean by that? I mean, I would give to this person. I felt like I was giving a lot of my love. I would nurture them, compliment them, all the things, whatever. It doesn't matter. I felt like I was giving to this person, but I also felt like I maybe wasn't receiving back what I was giving, right? And so because of that, it triggered me. So I became defensive, and I started being kind of cold and withdrawn and sarcastic. Why? Because this communication that I thought I have mastered, I didn't. These emotions that I thought were so stable were not. You know what I mean? This unconditional love that I thought I held in my heart was really love of expectation. Now I have realized that I have worked through that, and so I can adjust my way of being, my value system, and if I feel that coming up again, I can check it and say, like, all right, Aaliyah, what's going on here? You know what I mean? And then I can be accountable and responsible for myself instead of projecting these shortcomings or insecurities or whatever onto another person. So my point in giving that example is, sometimes we have the best intentions, and we really do think that we know ourselves. We really do think that we are trying to be the best us that we can be, without realizing that a lot of times, the influences of our life has shaped a lot of our patterns, our habits, our characteristics. And sometimes those are not healthy depending on the dynamic of what has influenced you. But that's all you know, especially if you don't have a role model, or you haven't seen that, or you haven't had those types of interactions. That's all you know. So that's another reason why it's important to be open to new perspectives. But that is, I have no idea where the heck I was going with that. Anyways, that's why it's so important to be able to internally reflect, because a lot of times we are operating through life with really good intentions, and we think that we are doing our best, but there is so much untapped potential within us that we need to bring awareness to, because in doing so, that allows us the space to grow and evolve, and then share our wisdom, our experiences, our knowledge with others to help them to grow and evolve. And then it just entirely helps the collective altogether. But furthermore, I mean, it just helps you get in tune with your true self, and then be confident in expressing that. Because when you have this internal reflection and you realize these things about yourself, especially when you approach it with compassion, you can then recognize that in another person. So when you encounter someone who has a reaction that may be less than appropriate to the situation, instead of you then becoming defensive and reacting on their same level, you can maintain your own energy and have some compassion for that person, and understand, like, okay, maybe they don't have this perspective, or they don't have this realization, or maybe they haven't gotten to that point in their life, and there's no judgment, but at least you now are not carrying anger or resentment or walking around, your energy is stable. You're not swayed by outside energies and whatever they may be dealing with in their own world. Do you know what I'm saying? So a good way to get started with that is journaling, and then for me also meditation. But my meditation doesn't look like the traditional, sit down, cross your legs, and like Om kind of meditation. I actually need to work on that because it's a little uncomfortable for me. My best meditation happens when I'm laying in the bed in the morning when I first wake up. And I allow myself space to kind of reflect, oftentimes on a dream. It's a dream that I'll have that I'll just kind of recap to myself and like work through, which would then trigger thoughts, and then I'll have realizations and so on. But I just oftentimes in my interactions, especially if I'm feeling something, will question myself, like, why do I feel that way? What caused that reaction? All the time in daily interactions, even interactions with my daughter. You know what I'm saying? Like, any moment that I have an opportunity to reflect and bring awareness to myself in a situation where I feel like I maybe could have handled that better, or that wasn't my highest self coming through, I will reflect and ask myself questions of curiosity. In the beginning, I most definitely judged myself in doing so. And I was so harsh, like, oh my God, Aaliyah, like, whatever. I would be really critical, and that was not productive. So it's easier to say don't judge yourself and to approach yourself with compassion than it is to practice it. So my point in saying that is practice it. You know what I mean? Because the more that you recognize your thought pattern and stop yourself when you start to spiral into these negative thoughts about yourself, like, oh God, whatever, I'm not worthy, or whatever the thought process is, whether it's a victim mindset, a lack mentality, whether it's issues of unworthiness, whatever it is, when you can recognize that and stop that, and then reframe that with, like, I'm a human being. I'm an imperfect person. I am doing my best. I am bringing self-awareness to myself. Self-awareness. I'm bringing myself to a point of awareness. I'm healing. I'm working on growing for my highest good and the highest good of anybody that I engage with. When you can start to reframe your thought process to that and practice doing that, and it becomes